Alrighty. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Why Wasn't It Better? I'm your host, Patrick Darms.
And I'm your co-host, Anton Paras.
And we have, on this episode of Why Wasn't It Better, we're digging into Poltergeist, the 1982 horror classic that is equal parts ghost story and suburban satire. We are going to talk about how Spielberg's fingerprints are all over this, whether Tobe Hooper really directed it, and why this movie still feels so effective and messy decades later. From the iconic performances to the real-life controversies that haunt the film's legacy, we're going to ask the question, why wasn't it better? And here to help us answer that question is a longtime return guest, Paul Kind.
Woo, Paul.
Hey guys, thank you very much for again another great invite to another great film. And actually, interestingly enough, I think the last time I did a pod with you guys, you were just about to be expectant parents. So some time has passed. So congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not together. Let's clarify that.
Yes, let's clarify that right now.
Timing is suspicious, man.
It is. We planned that for the pod. It's like, well, if we're both going to have children, we might as well do it around the same time.
Yeah, the timing worked out great, and we both enjoying dad life.
Yes, you and your wife beat us by a few weeks, but we don't hold that against you.
Yeah, it's a dad life party around here.
It is interesting, and we figured out we can do recordings once a week. It's not too difficult.
Yeah, it works out, and I think there's a new added perspective to films when you are a dad. I'm sure you both would agree.
Absolutely. This is the first time that I watched Poltergeist since becoming a dad. I don't know if it changed my opinion.
Maybe not this movie. Maybe not this one.
I think the big difference now is just access. You know, you've got to be more obviously aware of the amount of access your children will have in the future to all sorts of different types of films. But, you know, during my period, my parents didn't have to worry too much because it was that much harder to access any kind of films apart from trying to sneak into a cinema when you're like 14 or 15 to see an X certificate film or something like that. But it took a lot of effort.
No, really good call out, Paul. Is that really alluding to the allegory of the poltergeist in this film reaching out through the TV screen, being the media today reaching into the minds of our children?
Sure.
You might be onto something, yeah.
Yeah. Let's say yes. This was rated 15 in the UK, right, Paul?
Yeah.
Okay. It's rated PG here. Now, PG-13 didn't exist at the time. Is this one of the most over-the-top PG films ever, Anton? This or Gremlins, right?
Yeah, this, Gremlins, Back to the Future was PG, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was also like pretty racy for a PG film.
But there's nothing in Back to the Future like a guy ripping off his own face and just dumping it into the sink.
No, that's a little different.
By the way, did you also think he looked like Paul Dano?
Super funny. Yes, very good.
Is that his dad? Is that Paul
yeah.
Dano's dad? Anyway, the film that we're talking about today is Poltergeist. They're here. Probably one of the most famous taglines and quotes in any movie ever, really. And I gotta say, I had forgotten how iconic the poster is. Just Carol Ann, hands against the TV, nothing else in the image. Pretty good.
And inspires so much today.
So much. We're going to talk about it because it had been a while since I'd seen this. It had been a solid decade, I want to say. So Poltergeist was released on June 4th, 1982 by MGM. It was directed by, with the biggest asterisk humanly possible, Tobe Hooper. The screenplay was written by Steven Spielberg, Michael Grice, and Mark Victor, starring JoBeth Williams, Craig T. Nelson, Mr. Incredible himself, Heather O'Rourke, Dominique Dunn, Oliver Robbins, Beatrice Straight, and Zelda Rubinstein. The budget was $10.7 million. Pretty impressive. That is only $35 million in today's money. The box office return was $121 million. That is $400 million adjusted for inflation. So this film made more than 10x its budget. 88% Rotten Tomatoes score. Paul, you saw this, I believe, when it came out. Why did you want to talk about Poltergeist?
Similar to a lot of the films you've invited me to see and to talk about before, is I haven't seen this film for a long time, but it so resonated to me because harping back to the sort of early 80s, it was a period where we were starting to see a lot of films that tapped into the supernatural, horror, things like that. So you had things like the Amityville Horror, the Entity, and various other sort of almost could be true type films. And so this film, and the other thing you have to remember is there's a big gap between when it gets released in the States to when it finally comes to England. Because it was, the cans of film had to come all the way over here after you guys had used them. So there was a lot of hype around it. So I really enjoyed it. Spielberg's name was really prominent with this association with this film. Obviously, subsequent research, you see how deep he was embedded in this film. And so he had a great reputation. My entire cinematic history is built around Spielberg from the onset of Jaws, etc. So to be able to kind of relive this film, I was really curious whether my enjoyment of that film still works today, despite the fact I'd kind of seen it. So I knew where some of the jump scares were coming from. And was it a film of its time, or does it still hold up today? So I was really looking forward to it.
So you were aware of the Spielberg connection even then as a teenager?
Yeah, because I think there was such high promotion of his name to this.
Right.
Like the trailers it's produced by Steven Spielberg. And, he was already, there was always talk about him working on E.T. at the time. He'd been doing Close Encounters and all these other ones. So his name had so much hype anyway.
Yeah. This came out weeks before E.T.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about a summer of domination from a director? Anton, this is about as strong as it gets. E.T. was the highest grossing film ever released at the time.
Yeah. I mean, this is would you say this is kind of the peak of the golden age of Spielberg?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, he was the undisputed most dominant director. I mean, really until the 2000s.
Yeah. And legendary films during this time period, no doubt.
And not just the stuff that he directed. It was all the stuff that he was involved in as producer, like this film, just a producer and writer, air quotes.
Right. And
then a few short years after this, you had the Twilight Zone movie. He produced Gremlins. He produced Back to the Future. He produced Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I think I'm leaving stuff out. Young Sherlock Holmes, The Goonies. I mean, this is when he was the most active, I think, in terms of just what he was doing, directly related to films that he was releasing under his own name and then lending his name to as well. The controversy about this film and who really directed, that's worth talking about by itself. Anton, I feel like you and me, who are younger than Paul, this is one of my first introductions to horror. And although I would call this not exactly scary, it is a horror movie. This is one of the earliest horror movies I ever remember seeing, just because it was on TV so much when we were kids.
I was gonna say it's not one that even I sought out. I'd heard of it, but it was one that it was on TV and I ended up watching it. I'm sure it was very similar for you, Pat.
Yeah. It was just such a part of popular culture that I don't even remember when I became aware of this film. It just it was always there. I was always aware of it, like Jaws, like Halloween. I was just aware of it at a very young age. I saw it on TV a lot, but like we were saying earlier, I hadn't seen this in a long time because, of course, I don't watch TV anymore, not in the way that I used to. And, of course, because it's rated PG, I think the rating is a really interesting sticking point. It was just something that the whole family could watch. I remember watching this with my entire family around Halloween one year in what would have been probably the mid-90s. So I was 6, 7, something like that.
So would you guys have seen this via VHS, or would you have seen it just because it had been on cable?
Cable.
I was going to say this is probably, and there's a baby in the background. This was probably something that was on, I want to say either the Sci-Fi Channel for me or maybe TNT.
Certainly around Halloween, I think it was on cable pretty regularly. We had AMC, and this is before AMC had original programming, if you remember, Anton, when they just showed movies. And of course, in October, all they would show is horror movies, and I think this was certainly one of them.
Yeah, this, Rosemary's Baby.
The whole Halloween series. And I remember I saw all the Halloween films and some of the Friday the 13th films as a kid, because of course they were edited for cable. So that was a lot of stuff they were cutting out. And I don't know if they would have cut anything out from this other than the face mirror scene. That probably didn't make it into the cut on cable.
Oh my gosh, I don't know why, but I just suddenly had a very vivid memory from this being on UPN.
The local channel.
The local channel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember that. long gone. So, in the interest of Anton tending to his baby right now, Anton, would you like me to read the entire production history for now?
Oh, please.
All right, then. So, this film's concept was developed by Steven Spielberg, who invited writers Michael Grace, and Mark Victor to work with him on a project. After screening a guy named Joe for them and saying that he wanted to remake that film, which he later would in 1989 with Always, which is probably the one Spielberg movie that no one's seen. I've never seen it. Spielberg mentioned a ghost story idea that he intended to turn into a script. Originally, Spielberg wanted to get Stephen King to co-write the screenplay, which is really interesting to think about, but he was unavailable. And then my sidebar question is, why the hell haven't we gotten a collaboration between these two? It seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe someone has never mentioned it. Maybe they fell out just over this one. Who knows?
Seems like it would be a slam dunk for like a good collaboration.
Yeah, I wonder if, I don't know, was Stephen King kind of signed up to, to another studio, so therefore,
I don't know.
His books were never available for him?
It's a really good question. I know at this point, of course, there had been a few Stephen King adaptations already. I think it was a few years after this, Anton, correct me if I'm wrong, that he would write and direct Maximum Overdrive.
Yep, that's right.
Which is a absolutely bonkers film that we probably should cover. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Paul.
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh.
We had that referenced recently. What was it? Friend of the show, Garrett, mentioned Maximum Overdrive.
Garrett did mention. Are you familiar with the plot of this, Paul?
No, tell me.
It's where all machines on Earth come to life and start killing people.
All right.
Elevators, toasters, trucks. It's wild.
It's as crazy as you think it sounds.
Yeah.
Who stars in that one? Do you know?
I don't know if it had a star in it. But Stephen King directed it, which is that's wild to think about in of itself. Anyway, back to Poltergeist. Drew Barrymore was considered for the role of Carol Ann. No surprise there. But of course, her audition landed her the part of Gertie in E.T. I think that worked out for her.
Super funny. This is one of those moments of documented Mandela effect. A lot of people mistake that Drew Barrymore was in this film.
Do they?
Yeah. It's a very common Mandela effect thing.
Makes sense. I guess the only reason I didn't know that is because I'm so acutely aware of the so-called curse of this film, which we're going to talk about, fortunately. Right. Much of this was shot on Roxbury Street in Simi Valley, California. The initial round of principal photography was completed in August of 1981. Here's the interesting part. A clause in Spielberg's contract with Universal Studios prevented him from directing another film while preparing E.T. So while Tobe Hooper was overseeing the editing process, Spielberg was at Industrial Light and Magic supervising the visual effects photography. And Spielberg recalled the most complicated lighting effects were used in Carol Ann's closet. No surprise there. Spielberg's usual editor, Michael Kahn, edited this film while Carol Littleton edited E.T. And that's an interesting thing about Spielberg's filmography. Michael Kahn, has edited pretty much every film that Spielberg's ever done except for E.T. and I think maybe one other. Would have been Jaws. The film was originally given an R rating by the MPAA, but Spielberg successfully lobbied to have it reduced to PG. And I don't think there are many other directors that could have gotten this rating lowered.
That's quite a leap from sort of X-rated all the way down to a PG, isn't it?
Well, R.
R, right.
Yeah, there was X at the time, yeah.
Okay, your R is 18 or over, is that right?
17.
17.
Technically.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's, of course, 17... If you're under 17, you can of course get in with a parent. It's not like anyone under 17 isn't admitted. You just have to have a parent. And that's probably why I saw Saving Private Ryan in the theater at 10 years old, which was kind of outrageous, but I was like, you need to see this movie. I'm taking it.
There were no questions asked when I went to go see Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back in high school, but
you were in high school. You could probably
that was like pass as like a 17-year-old at 15.
Right. And let's face it, do a lot of theater employees care?
No, they don't.
No, they don't. So we're going to talk about more of the production and the reasons, which we can start with now. Why wasn't it better? We have to talk about the biggest controversy of this film, which is the creative credit. This is the thing that I would say most often gets brought up. with this film. Spielberg's involvement led many to believe that he was the de facto director on this. What do we think?
I mean, clearly the setup itself, the family dynamics, children in danger, the pacing of it, the cinematography, everything just smells of Spielberg. It really does. I can't see how anyone can say otherwise, really.
This is a Spielberg film, no doubt about it.
The joke about this film is that it looks like it's shot on the same street as E.T., and it really does.
Yeah.
I know they were technically filmed in separate locations, but man, they look so similar.
I mean, right to the get-go, you've got that scene where the guy's on the bike with the beers, and then the kids sort of attack him with the radio control cars. I mean, that's right out of Spielberg playbook, surely, in terms of mischievous kids, adults trying to be, grown-up men, desperate for beers, all that kind of stuff. I think just setting that scene is just what he does so well.
Officially Tobe Hooper directed this, and of course he is best known for the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is a very influential film in its own right. Now, I don't want to take credit away from Hooper because that film was such a big deal when it came out in 1974, and it continues 50 plus years later to be one of the most beloved horror movies of all time. That's primarily how he got this job. But there were just so many reports that Spielberg really directed it. And then, of course, right around the time that this film came out, Spielberg himself inadvertently helped fuel these rumors. He gave an interview to the LA Times, and he said, quote, "Tobe isn't a take charge sort of guy. If a question was asked and an answer wasn't immediately forthcoming, I would jump in and say we could do. Tobe would nod agreement, and that became the process of collaboration," end quote. And the rumors were strong enough that the Directors Guild opened an investigation into the question of whether or not Hooper's official credit was being denigrated by statements Spielberg has made, apparently claiming authorship, end quote. Now, when the investigation concluded, the arbitrator ruled that MGM, they had to pay Hooper an additional fee because the studio gave producer Spielberg a bigger credit than Hooper in its trailers. You pointed that out earlier, Paul. The promotion for this film was Spielberg's making this.
But it's quite, I mean, to say to someone that they're not, the decision maker, and you're the director, it's quite a fundamental statement, isn't it, of intent. It's like every creative decision, are you basically saying that Tobe just pondered and then Spielberg just jumped in and said, "Oh, actually, this is the way we should shoot it"? It just seems like he was just a hired hand from that statement.
That's what I don't get. I don't really have enough experience with Tobe Hooper's other films to really know what his style is. I mean, this is completely different than Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I don't have anything to compare this to, if you know what I'm saying. Like, was he just there to get Spielberg coffee?
Good question, Pat. I think that a lot of evidence points, of course, to this being just a fully fledged Spielberg film, and anything on paper is just contractual obligation. But I think that you can even look at films today where it's not an uncommon practice for bigger names to get higher billing despite who's actually on paper, if anything, just for the marketing.
Some more data points here, just in case none of us are convinced yet who really directed this. So the co-producer of the film, a longtime Spielberg collaborator Frank Marshall, who is still working today. He's a very, very well-known name in the industry, married to Kathleen Kennedy. He just co-produced the newest Jurassic World film, which apparently we're going to have to cover later this season, Anton. Hip, hip, hooray. Frank Marshall told the LA Times in the same interview, quote, "The creative force of the movie was Steven. Tobe was the director, and he was on set every day. But Steven did the design for every storyboard, and he was on set every day, except for 3 days when he was in Hawaii with George Lucas," end quote. That's such a damning thing to say, talking about Hooper. You're like, well, he was on set. We let him on set.
He had a good time. We ate from the same food truck.
Yeah, we gave him a per diem. Zelda Rubinstein, who played Tangina, whatever her name is, she later recalled that during her 6 days of shooting, Spielberg directed all 6 days. First assistant cameraman John Leonetti reported Spielberg directed the film more so than Hooper, stating, quote, "Hooper was so nice and just happy to be there." He creatively had input. Steven developed the movie, and it was his to direct, except there was an anticipation of a director's strike, So he was the producer, but really he directed it in case there was going to be a strike, and Toby was cool with that. It wasn't anything against Toby, but every once in a while he would actually leave the set and let Toby do a few things just because. But really, Steven directed it. And
It's a little damning.
I was trying to find stuff in the research of like, what did Hooper have to say about this? And that made me think of Hooper jokes from Jaws. Hooper! But anyway, not related to Jaws. You know, in some ways, I kind of feel bad for the guy. Just like having people talk about you like that. Like, well, he was on set. He didn't really speak about it much. And whenever he did, it was very diplomatic. In the same LA Times article, he stated, quote, I directed the film. I spent 3 years on the project from the initial story concept to the final print. I collaborated closely with Steven Spielberg, but the directing was my responsibility, end quote. But he did admit that Spielberg was often on set and extremely hands-on. He said the collaboration was symbiotic.
Don't know about that.
This is 100% directed by Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Toby Hooper, but sorry, man, you did not direct this film.
I suppose it's a win-win for Toby. He gets paid, he gets the director's credit, he gets to work with Spielberg. Do you know what I mean? He takes the big fat check home, and as far as he's concerned, job done. You know, and we end up with a great film. So,
right,
yeah, there's a debate around it, and clearly it seems to stem towards Spielberg, but you know, maybe some of the more horror elements of Poltergeist was really more Toby's doing and input than maybe some of the more sort of family-orientated stuff and just the general pacing.
I would like to think that's it, Paul. You could almost say he was like the scary consultant on set.
Does Spielberg really need a scary consultant? He knows thrills.
He does. I mean, you know, people give Spielberg crap for making stuff that's too, you know, sappy or too maudlin. It's like, this is the guy that directed Jaws, which made generations of people afraid to go in the ocean.
This is the guy that put E.T. in a wig, which terrified a generation of children.
I mean, you're joking, but I'll even go up a level, Anton. Like the heart ripping out scene in Temple of Doom, like that scared me almost more than anything as a kid. And it's not technically a horror movie.
Yeah, it's good horror is the same thing with any other genre. It's about understanding story structure and what to anticipate with expectations of the viewer. And that's Spielberg to a T.
There are many of the cast who defended Hooper's contributions to this, but just in case, if anyone had doubts about who really directed this, here's how I can summarize it. Spielberg co-wrote the screenplay, he produced the film, he hired the crew, he cast the actors, he did all of the storyboarding, he was on set every day, he had final say on every decision, and he oversaw the editing process.
Definitive.
And you were getting into this, Paul. The tone, the pacing, the suburban setting, the family dynamic, all Spielberg trademarks.
I would say the opening scene of how you introduce the family in the space and essentially the what's built up the tension was right at the beginning where you get the static. Well, sorry, it's the end of broadcast where you get the anthem. Then you get the static. Then it pulls away. You see the dad. You then see the dog. The dog then takes you to every individual member of the family. And just by each room, you can tell what kind of kids they are. And you meet the mum and everything else. And then the daughter comes downstairs. And then she goes, they're here. I mean, that's all in 4 minutes. And what a great way to introduce a story. And that, to me, is Spielberg's timeless direction.
Would you say he ghost directed it?
Ooh, spooky.
I mentioned to you both, I found definitive evidence that he directed this film. This is something I stumbled upon for a film that we covered last season, Anton. The Color Purple. He was doing promotional interviews for that film. So this would have been a couple years after this, right? 1985. And he was giving an interview. You know Bobby Wygant?
Mm-hmm.
That Southern Belle lady who used to interview actors. She's like long dead now, but...
Mm-hmm.
He was talking, Spielberg was telling her about 1982, and his direct quote was, quote, I was going crazy trying to make 2 movies at the same time in 1982, end quote.
Yeah. I mean, again, if this was a court of peers, still open to interpretation, but with everything else put together, it's very clear he directed this film.
If this went to court, he'd get convicted.
Oh, yeah. Or
there's no way.
There's a settlement.
Yeah, there's a settlement. I mean, there literally was with Hooper.
Yeah.
Number two reason why this wasn't better. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with the film's quality, but this film has a curse. Apparently,
It's the skeletons. It's clearly the skeletons' fault.
well, apparently they used real skeletons for that scene.
Exactly. It's why it's the curse.
Yeah, it seems like a red flag.
Why would you use real skeletons?
They were apparently cheaper to get than fake skeletons, is what the research told me. I don't know
God.
if that's true.
That is gross.
They did not tell Jo Beth Williams that until afterwards when she filmed the scene. Is that the scariest part of the film when she's in the pool?
It's a very
That's nightmare fuel.
It's
That really
disturbing.
is.
It was disturbing for sure. Much like the rest of the film, I think what's scary about it is they've grounded it enough that you can always see yourself as one of the characters experiencing something like this.
Right.
And so even something like that, which is so just out of this world, is just terrifying. And then it's even more terrifying when you know the real skeletons.
Well, I'd actually argue the clown was the scariest part.
I won't argue that. I won't argue against you.
Why would you have a clown in your bedroom?
I wrote that down. Like, wait a minute. Who would buy that and put that in their bedroom? A psychopath?
Yeah, the timing on that scene for the jump scare is just perfect. Even if you'd never seen that, even if you'd never seen this film and you watch that scene, I think you can anticipate this is when the clown's gonna jump out and like scare this kid. But it still gets me every time.
This film is a masterpiece of setup and payoff. Nothing, you texted this to me, Paul, like nothing's wasted in this film. Every single thing they set up in this film pays off in some way, shape, or form, which bad horror movies don't do.
Yeah, like when you find out that everything with all of the spirits and the haunting was actually set up by the original guys watching the football game at the beginning of the film.
Yes. Before we talk about that stuff, though, I do want to bring up the curse that is associated with this film. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but I feel like if we're covering Poltergeist, it is worth mentioning. It's pretty tragic. Dominique Dunne, who plays the eldest daughter in this film, she was strangled by her ex-boyfriend in the driveway of her West Hollywood home on October 30th, 1982. She died 5 days later at the age of 22.
So sad. And
then Heather O'Rourke, who plays Carol Ann, she died at age 12 from complications of intestinal stenosis while filming Poltergeist 3 in 1988. Awful. And then Lou Perryman, who plays someone in this movie, was murdered with an axe in 2009.
All very sad. This is not the only film that has had curses associated with it. Other paranormal films or films that are kind of associated with spirits, The Omen was a really infamous one. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the curse around The Omen.
Yeah,
it's a really big one. But if I've learned anything when it comes to this spooky stuff, it is spooky.
But I wonder if statistically you could look at a lot of films and then draw lines to people who have, come to some very sad, tragic ends, and then tag it as a cursed film as such. Is it just because it's Poltergeist that it's got that tag?
I'm sure it helped fuel it for sure.
Yeah.
Probably the worst one that I can think of is not one that people often think of, but you know the John Wayne film The Conqueror, where they filmed it in Nevada and like half the people that worked on the film got cancer because it was near a nuclear testing site.
Or the cursed series, The Honeymooners. To this day, there are no living members of that show.
They're all dead, Anton? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm trying not to laugh because the baby's literally fallen asleep on me. So
I think we've got a new idea for a YouTube channel.
Did you know they all died? Everyone that filmed Casablanca died? Can you believe it? Let's talk about everything else. This is a blanket thing. Because, I think all three of us like this film quite a bit. I don't have a ton to criticize about it, but I'll just say it now. I don't love this film like a lot of people do. I like it very much. I have a lot of respect and admiration for it without having a ton of affection for it. That's probably the best way I can articulate it. I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
No, I think that totally makes sense. I guess how else would you describe it to the viewers, the listeners?
It's the only way I could think of. That's all you got. This really did set the bar for haunted house films, didn't it, Paul?
Oh, absolutely. The only thing I would say is, like, when you first saw this film, would you have said that that time this is probably the best kind of horror, scary movie you'd seen? I mean, if every time it was on, would you make an effort to watch it when you were younger?
I suppose. I don't know if I had a choice.
Yeah, true.
I'm wondering, was it just put on for me?
Yeah, I mean, I'm similar to you in terms of I haven't seen this film for quite some time, so it clearly can't be one of my favorites. Otherwise, but to be honest, it's never really been on TV. I'm trying to think the last time on our terrestrial channels that it's actually been broadcast. I can't think of it.
I think part of it is just also the timeliness, or the is it just tastes have changed in terms of what is like the level of horror that people really are engaging with nowadays. This film, of course, has inspired so many horror films of today.
It's crazy.
And thinking actually of those horror films that people are tuning in and watching and that are on always going to consistently be on October. I mean, even a big one right now, The Conjuring. You can't help but watch The Conjuring and think of this series.
Insidious.
Insidious is another popular one. Even what was it, the found footage,
Blair Witch Project type stuff.
Paranormal Activity.
Paranormal Activity, that was the one I was thinking of. Especially like the movement of like the different objects in the home and going finding things finding things that were positioned differently from when you entered the room. It's all very inspired by this.
Well, that's where I think this film has its greatest legacy. As far as I could figure, and I was trying to do research with ChatGPT and just Google in general to figure this out. Prior to this, the concept of a haunted house film had been around a long time. You had stuff like The Haunting. Paul, you mentioned Amityville Horror. But those were always in like big, creepy, gothic mansions. This was one of, if not the first films to take that and bring it to the suburbs, bring it to a house where normal people would live.
I would say this was also one that modernized it for the 80s. Because before this, we had Rosemary's Baby, which fit perfectly for that time.
Yeah, and that's not, I wouldn't call that a haunted house film.
No, but that was the very similar vein of something insidious is happening in the suburbs.
Right.
I would also say that the big difference between, maybe this is why you may not have affection for it, but with like The Conjuring, Paranormal Activity, as far as I remember, there isn't a lot of setup with the family, and the tone does switch quite a lot between sort of scary elements to quite fun elements in Poltergeist, whereas these other ones, it's out and out, we're going to try and scare the bejeez out of you.
Pure horror.
Pure horror, right? They're not going to put in some funny stuff in there, or maybe they do, but instantly then they're skewered or something. You know what I mean? It's
I think it almost even does I maybe underappreciate that aspect about this film is moments like that help disengage and kind of take you out of that mindset of, oh, it's okay, I don't have to be afraid right now. But that's a good mindset in that it intensifies later scares a bit more because the mind is suddenly comfortable.
I was also trying to figure this. This is one of the first films to feature the supernatural goo. This became famous from Ghostbusters, but of course this film precedes Ghostbusters by 2 years, and according to Google, the first film to actually feature this goo is called The Legend of Hell House from 1973. I've never heard of it, but...
Yeah, this is what, in the same level of like ectoplasm.
Exactly. This film, one of the first to do it, and then Paul, you mentioned The Entity at the top of the episode, which came out the same year as this, about a woman who's raped by a poltergeist-like entity. Barbara Hershey's in that film. That also featured ectoplasm type goo.
I can't imagine a film like that being made now.
No.
I don't think so. And of course, the whole paranormal research team, you know, like Beatrice Straight's character, Dr. Lesh, and her team, as far as I can find, just from doing the research that I did, there were almost no movies that came before this that featured characters like that. We got a little bit of that, Anton, in Exorcist 2. Not that I want to sing praises for that piece of shit, but what is that actress's name? Louise Fletcher. Her character, is she like or was she like a psychiatrist in that film? I don't even remember.
She was not connected to the paranormal in any way.
Okay. So yeah. That film doesn't deserve credit for this. Good.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Yeah, let's not.
Paul, you a big Exorcist 2 fan?
No. To be honest, I'm not even sure I've even seen it.
There's no reason to.
I was going to say, Paul.
And you guys
no reason
to. Put me off.
That is the second worst film we've ever reviewed, Anton, right?
Yep, it is one that will physically make you ill.
There's a film, I can't remember, it's called The Haunting or something like that. It's a black and white one where all these people, and I'm sure some of them were
Haunting of Hill
scientists.
House.
Is that what that one is? Yeah.
Yeah.
That did scare me.
Ooh, Robert
that-
Wise directed it, right?
Yeah, and that inspired the remake in, I want to say it was the late 90s, The Haunting.
Yeah, which Steven Spielberg executively produced.
Ooh.
Jan de Bont directed it.
Did it have one of the Wayans brothers in it?
I think it did.
Yeah.
All I remember is it had prime Catherine Zeta-Jones.
And really bad CGI.
Yes, but also prime Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yes.
Who else was in there? Was it Liam Neeson?
Man,
right.
I think it. So I think it was one of the Wayans brothers. You're right on Catherine Zeta-Jones. Maybe Liam Neeson.
I think it's Liam Neeson. It's on the list to cover. We're gonna do it because I remember it not being great.
Good on Liam Neeson, by the way. He's dating Pamela Anderson.
Good for him.
Yeah, after like co-leading on The Naked Gun.
Right.
Happy for him.
Yeah. We love you, Qui-Gon Jinn. The role he doesn't want to be remembered for, but that's
I watched
okay.
you twice, Barbed Wire.
That one you should definitely do a podcast for. Barbed Wire.
Man, that's digging. That's digging deep.
That is digging real deep.
Just moving through the list because God, this movie's just so iconic. I mentioned they're here. That's just a super famous line. And then the medium, right? The concept of the medium. This Tangina character.
Mm-hmm. Tangina?
I don't know how to say it. You let me know, Anton. Tangina, sure. The very similar, very influential character. You saw that this would pop up again in Insidious or like the Warrens in The Conjuring. I guess you could all bring this back to the specialist who they bring in The Exorcist, Max von Sydow. Right. More or less the same type of character, right?
Yeah, it's the same kind of concept of when you bring in the specialist on Pawn Stars. You just want someone that knows the subject matter.
Wow.
Does Dr. Lesh really explain how she found Tangina?
Nope. Just that she had done a lot of cleaning.
Right. Well, we're going to talk about later. Is she good at cleaning houses? I don't know.
Nope.
But they don't really actually go into any explanations how they got the researchers either.
No. This is a flaw that I wrote down as well, Paul.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It feels like there is a scene missing after Carol Ann gets taken. I think this is where you're going with this, right?
Yeah.
It immediately cuts to Craig Nelson's character in the paranormal researcher's office. And he mentions we didn't go to the police. So it's like, how did you find them? Are paranormal investigations like a common thing in this universe? None of that's made clear.
And it's quite a leap not calling the police, right?
Yeah.
For your child.
I mean, Anton, correct me if I'm did we miss anything? They do not explain how they found them at all. Right?
No, they don't.
I mentioned all the payoffs. I had just forgotten about, there's like an iconic shot or iconic scene basically every 5 minutes in here. Pretty impressive. Carol Ann in front of the TV, which is on the poster as well, right? The evil tree, the portals, go toward the light.
Go toward the light.
Go toward the light. The face ripping scene, the maggot stake, the clown attack, the pool full of skeletons, the two appearances of the beast. I mean, it's just every 5 minutes there's just something that's a classic.
And my favorite bit is the chairs. I was talking to my wife about it, and that was her favorite as well.
Good call.
There was just no expectation. She was just wandering into the kitchen, and then it pans, and then it pans back, and suddenly the chairs have all moved, and it's just one of those kind of freaky jump scares that I just absolutely loved.
All three of us live in houses. You're leaving immediately after that, right? You're out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just out.
You're out.
Yeah.
She kind of laughs it off. Like she's freaked out by it, but kind of brushes it off.
But do you think that the kind of, the scene where they're in bed together and she's rolling up a joint and all that sort of talks to more of a kind of bohemian sort of hippie lifestyle, that maybe she's a bit more kind of like willing to acknowledge that this might be benevolent and good. Don't know.
That must have been cut out from cable, Anton. I remember seeing that like in college, like years later. I'm like, wow, I didn't know they were getting high in this film. Kind of explained some of it.
I don't remember watching that as a kid, or
would it have just gone over our heads?
Maybe. Could be.
Literally and metaphorically.
Right. Yes, that's true.
Good one.
But the other thing I was going to ask you two guys, being Americans, is he's reading a book on Reagan. Do you think there's any political statement there by the directors or the writers? I don't know what the book
I noticed
is.
that too, and I just chalked it up to. It seemed like they were doing a lot of pop culture references, and it was just like an easy thing for them to include.
Right.
Yeah, I've never read an analysis on it, but you don't include something as prominent like that unless there's something to connect it to. So I think there probably is some subtext.
I think it fit for his character, right? He's real estate salesman, yuppie.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at the neighborhood. You mentioned Simi Valley. It's a fairly new community. It's a
right.
It's
a Cuesta Verde.
What is it? It's a planned community.
Right.
There's so much subtext that you could look at a film like Poltergeist and what going into a planned community is either trying to avoid, or then what can the actual spirits represent. That's a different podcast, though.
And of course, one thing I will add to it is this was a time when a Republican president was not nearly as disliked by Hollywood as he would be now. I mean, remember Reagan, former actor, former president of the Screen Actors Guild, former governor of California. He was friends with many people in Hollywood. I don't even think it would have been controversial then in any way.
No, very early in his presidency too.
Right. He would have been president for a little bit over a year at this point.
Yeah, so I don't think anything would have been enacted that would maybe call for. I'll say this: I think it was more so in the second half of his second term, when maybe more folks were analyzing things with a bit more scrutinization.
Yeah, I think the Iran-Contra thing is where that probably would have flipped. People got a lot more cynical about Reagan, and that is as political as we will get on this podcast.
Right.
Why hasn't there been a movie about Iran-Contra? We'd make a good movie, right?
It's been covered on like shows,
but not like a movie, like a movie movie.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that we're really going political here, but how Epstein was involved in all of that as well.
In Poltergeist?
No, the Iran-Contra deal that was going on, because he was the money man.
Yeah, he was. He had his tentacles into arms trafficking, because of course he did. But anyway, he's dead now.
Changing the subject onto a lighter note, the dog. Clearly the star of the movie, I feel. Points right at the beginning, introduces the family, points to the spot above the bed.
You're out when that happens too, right?
Sorry?
Wouldn't you be out if that happened too, if your dog's barking at the wall like that? You should probably leave for a few days.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look, do I kind of wonder what is my baby looking at when she's looking up at nothing in a room and constantly staring at one part of the room? Yeah, it's a little creepy.
A little bit. I have to just repeat this. This movie has been copied and parodied so much. I hadn't seen it in so long, and every 5 minutes something iconic happens. It's like this film's throwing haymakers. Insidious owes a lot to this movie, Anton. That's like the R-rated cousin of this. This is probably a more influential film than I think it gets credit for. Like, I think everyone knows this is a classic, but it's just been referenced so much.
Yeah, and for any listeners that haven't seen it, as much of a joke as they made, the Family Guy episode where it was basically the entire Poltergeist film is actually like shot for shot, like really close, on like beat for beat of like what happened in the film, and super well done in that sense.
I think my favorite shot of the film is one of the most famous ones. It's the dolly zoom when Joe Beth Williams' character is trying to run down the hallway to get to the bedroom, and it just keeps getting longer and longer. Yeah. That is exactly what it feels like to be in a nightmare. They absolutely nail that feeling of when you're in a nightmare and you're running and you can't get away or you can't get to where you're trying to go. It is perfect.
Yeah, no, that's a really good call. I think just the atmosphere of whenever there's a staticky TV on the screen, like for me, that I can't help but think of this film with that aesthetic, even though it's a callback or it's an homage in so many films today. I think The Ring, or even just like the original Japanese version, like you can't watch that without thinking of this film.
And that's why, although I don't love this film, I can't criticize it too much because of just how iconic it is. You know, maybe I don't have the affection for it that others do, but like I have to give it its props. It's just like the clown attack that terrified me as a kid. Everything. But does it terrify us now?
So I was going to ask this to the both of you. Doing the watch for the episode, what was the atmosphere that you put yourself in when watching it?
Well, having a very young baby at home, I have to pick and choose when I can watch films. I watched this in the morning on a Saturday. Not the best time to watch a horror movie, but I don't have a lot of options anymore, Anton. I'm sure you can identify with it. That being said, I don't find this movie scary at all.
My setup was almost exactly the setup that Pat is in right this minute, with all the lights off, the bright light of the TV. So I fully immersed myself in that entire film. Yeah, I think the difficulty is over time we've kind of got a bit numb to some of the tropes that they were the first ones to do, but we see so much today. So we go, okay, this is what's going to happen in a minute. When they open the door, this is going to happen. Or the clown, at some point, we know. But what I love about them is, especially the clown ones, you know it's coming, but you just don't remember when. So when it does actually happen, it did make me jump. So it's still got a little bit of magic in it.
I mean, what I would add to my statement that I don't find it scary, Anton, is it has very effective scenes in it. I do think in some ways it is limited by its rating, and I do think in some ways it is limited by its tone. If there is one thing that I will slightly criticize about this film is that I think far too often it is switching between trying to be a horror movie and trying to be a softer kind of suburban family movie.
Yeah, this film was released in June of that year.
Right.
Fair to say it's a summer film, and I think that atmosphere 100% has to do with how we enjoy a film like this. It's why, like, even during the summer, even today, like, a lot of horror films get released because people are going out for like a subversive thrill, and sometimes that's a horror film. And even by like you said it, Pat, like even by standards of like the early 80s, something like this is very safe. It's not very in your face with too much gore. There's a little bit, but so many of these scenes and so much of the atmosphere is very just open for the family to be able to enjoy. And if even by today's standards, if I'm watching this like in the living room, I already know a lot of these tropes. My attention span just isn't getting caught in the same way as maybe it was back then. I have to be fully immersed if I'm going to watch this film and just enjoy it as much as I think maybe they did back in the day. But there's so many films that have sped up a bit and have also just kind of jumped a bit from what kind of horror film this is.
Another thing, too, and I think this would have helped the film story a bit, is the concept of the Beast as the ultimate villain of the film is kind of vague. Tangina, it tries to explain what it is, like conceptually, but how the Beast manifests itself and what its powers are and what it can and cannot do, I felt was like pretty inconsistently handled throughout the film. It's powerful enough. It can kidnap Carol Ann and take it into its dimension, right? It can manifest itself as, what did I write down here? Okay. It manifests itself directly twice. First as like a giant flaming skull, and then later as like this tall, wispy skeletal figure thing. But why doesn't it do it more often? Why does it only do it those 2 times? Like, how limited are its powers? I don't think any of this stuff was clear.
Do you think that your expectation for the Beast is also maybe it's also through the lens of you've seen how films have treated something similar now?
Yes. And I don't know if that's completely fair. And talking about other films too, I'm also thinking about the sequels to this film and how they treated the Beast, because they essentially retcon what the Beast represents in this film, which should not be held against this film, because I think all of us can agree the sequels to this are quite bad. And of course, when Spielberg and the other 2 guys were writing this, they were not thinking about anything that would be used in the sequels. So we shouldn't apply that here. I just found the paranormal parts of this film. We kind of mentioned it earlier, right? How did they find Dr. Lesh and her team? Is this more common in the universe that this film occupies? She brings in Tangina. How does she find her? I mean, I think it's pretty silly how Tangina says, like, this house is clean. What is she basing that on? It's clearly not. All that stuff was just pretty vague to me.
No, those are really good points, Pat. I think that while it's still important that we And we recognize that we've seen other films that have treated like other entities within the vicinity differently. I think that it's still important to look at that as like, well, this is kind of a weak point in the story structure. Just because I'm thinking of like The Exorcist as a really good example of the evil is very clear. It's a demon of some sort. Everyone kind of can have a grasp of hell and a demon. But here, it's a bit more complex, a bit more nuanced. It's harder to grasp.
It's vague.
And it's a bit more distracting.
I'm just making sure there's not a tree outside my window. Sorry.
Just start counting.
You heard that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little spooky.
Timing on this is just perfect.
Yeah, it's just I think that if it was a bit more, I hate to say simple, but at least clearer, like what the beast truly was, or at least a better rule set, consistent rule set, it would have been stronger.
Well, if you're curious, Anton, the second film does make it clear what the beast is. Reverend, not Harry Kane.
Yeah, no, we're good. We're good, thank you.
Don't worry, we'll cover that.
But would you say that this is a case of Alien and then Prometheus? There's no need for an explanation. You know, it's like sometimes keeping it vague. It's so scary.
Yes, I would say yes to that, Paul, because the second film attempting to explain more of this doesn't gel well together with this film. I do think that the two appearances of the beast in this film, while they are scary and iconic, they don't really make sense with the powers that the beast uses throughout the rest of the film. If you know what I mean? Like, why just those two skull manifestations? It's scary, but why can't it do it all the time? But no, I didn't need to know more, because if you've read the plot of the second film, it doesn't make sense with the plot of this one really at all.
I kind of want to go back to modern day horror a bit, and with that same concept of really not knowing what the paranormal entity is. And I don't know if either of you have seen Hereditary.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that one, you kind of piece it together over the course of the film, like, what are we dealing with here? And still, even at the end, I think it took me a couple watches before I fully grasped, like, what is causing all of like these demonic forces.
It's wild.
Yeah, but I think like that's kind of the enjoyment of that film, is that because of the way it pieces things together, because of like the background, the little details, I don't think there was as similar breadcrumbs in this film.
And they didn't try, and they didn't care. Spielberg and the writers, I think, were much more concerned with just giving us iconic moments rather than explaining any of this. They just pay lip service to a lot of this stuff.
Right. It's to make big moments, and the big moments had great payoff.
They did. They absolutely succeeded at doing that. And I do like a paranormal investigation crew. I like the character played by Beatrice Straight and the two guys, one of whom looks very much like Paul Dano. It's pretty funny. What do we think of Zelda Rubinstein's character?
Fits the atmosphere, but distracting.
A little hard to take seriously, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I think they all. I don't think there was any too much distraction. I think they all contributed to the plot and the story. So I wouldn't want to be overly critical for any of it, to be honest, or anyone.
Storm is nuts.
Yeah. Stay safe out there.
Are you seeing the lightning?
I'm hearing it, and it is creepy.
Yeah. Perfect movie for it, really.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about future films that also take from this is they don't approach paranormal mediums or psychics with quite the same level of eccentric. It seems to be just this film.
By eccentric, do you mean borderline cartoon character?
Very just over the top. Wow. Very over the top. Not to piss off any spirits out there.
No, because I don't know if you know this. Her character dies in the third one. But she's more powerful than ever. Much like a Jedi. When you strike her down, she becomes more powerful than you could possibly imagine. Her character saying this house is clean never made sense to me. But if I were one of the parents, I'd be like, what about the beast? What happens there?
It's all for atmosphere, man. Like, it's even that, I think it's a it's a hard subject because even just that kind of character, it's just not really portrayed the same way anymore.
I don't think her character would work in a modern film. It just wouldn't fit with a lot of the tones that movies have now.
Well, I suppose it was a good way of showing, no one really knew what a medium would be like, what kind of character they would be. So she was just so different. And I think that helped sort of bring some nuance and a bit something new to the cast. She was so different. Physically she was different. Her voice was different. So you were kind of focused in on what she was saying, and you felt like she was connected to these spirits because she was different. And she also had one of the best lines in the film when, when they were going to get Carol Ann, and she goes, "I'm going to go in now," and Diane turns around to her and said, "But you've never done it before." And she goes, "Oh yeah, right, you do it."
It is great.
Such a straight face as well.
The tennis
Classic.
ball's really iconic.
Yeah.
We keep using the word iconic, but I mean, the rest of the characters I think are great. Especially the best thing about this movie is the family unit. They really do feel like a real family. It's wonderful writing and acting from them.
It's a bit more natural to how the family responds to a lot of it. It's very cautious. It's very like parents actually listening to the kids, like what's going on. It breaks a few of the tropes that we typically expect of what goes on with films like this. Like other than realistically, I think everyone would have just noped out of that place real hard.
For sure. They stick around way too long. But yeah, Joe Beth Williams and Craig T. Nelson, they're great. They really do feel like a couple. The kids are great. Nobody's a cliche either. Like nobody does anything like horror movie tropes. I feel like that what a lot of future movies do. Just waiting for this thunder to pass. Kind of like they do in the film. I mean, would you say the standout is Heather O'Rourke as Carol Ann? Most famous performance in the film, right?
I mean, just for the age she was at the time, and the performance she gave out was just incredible. I think speaks to how Spielberg gets the best out of any child actor, no matter what age they are. It's a great performance given the scary nature of the actual film itself.
Anton, do you hate Robbie for being a Dodgers fan?
It's a terrible quality, but I try not to hold it against him.
So when he gets taken by the tree, you didn't want him to get killed?
He killed a little much, but stub his toe. I'm not going to cry about it. It's the Dodgers.
Think how much that would traumatize you as a kid, just that alone.
Just that, the tree?
Yeah, just that.
That's pretty traumatizing.
It's never really brought up again, which is the funniest thing about it. Obviously they have like more important things to deal with, like getting Carol Ann back, but never once. I don't think Craig Nelson mentions it to the paranormal investigators. Like, oh, by the way, like the tree broke into our house and tried to take my son. Like, just maybe you should know about that.
Pretty creepy.
Just a little bit.
Also, that was probably one of my favorite parts from the Family Guy episode, is how they handled the tree scene
with Herbert.
And then Herbert fights the tree, and then for whatever reason, it brings them on top of the mountain in Lord of the Rings.
I've got to see this episode.
Oh, it's a really fun.
It's an old one too.
Yeah, it's like earlier seasons one. It's funny.
Early 2000s, somewhere around there. So, according to the novelization of this film, Diane is 32 and Dana is 16. She's the stepmom. Which makes sense. You don't think about these things when you're watching this movie as a kid, but like, wow, yeah, Joe Beth Williams looks young in here.
Mm-hmm.
Craig Nelson, I think, always looked 40 to me.
That's funny.
Always, but...
And still is. His voice...
Mr. Incredible.
Mr. Incredible, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Never think.
I've still got time. My wife and I were cracking up at the construction workers catcalling Dana. You would
awkward.
would never see that in a film today. And then...
No.
Diane just laughs it off in the kitchen. She's like, oh, those guys. It's like, holy crap.
Is that like, I don't think it was okay then.
She treats it like she just treats it like a joke, though.
It's so weird.
I mean, no, it wouldn't have been okay then, but the fact that it's in the film and it's treated as like a gag is outrageous. It's almost as dated as the TV static.
Almost as dated as Biff's whole character in Back to the Future.
Yeah. Although he is supposed to be the villain. doing villainous things.
True. Okay, fair.
But yeah, do they treat Biff as kind of a joke? Kind of.
Yes.
Is he the best movie bully ever? Yeah, right. He is.
Oh, iconic movie bully.
Or Johnny from Karate Kid.
That's an interesting one.
They're in the finals, right? They're the 2 1 seeds in the bracket.
I think we have to take a look at the lineup.
They'd be high.
Oh yeah, they're top seeds for sure.
I do want to point out one of the construction workers. Anton, did you recognize it's Billy from Predator?
Oh, that's so funny. You're right. Yeah.
Billy, come back. Where are you going?
Oh, there's actually there's a few folks in this film that have also starred in other horror films. We haven't talked too much about like the the horror star system.
Yeah, I mean, pretty small cast, but I think you're right. The guy that plays Craig Nelson's, I can't remember his name. What's his character's name? I should have written this down.
I forget, but he was in one of the Halloween films.
Yeah, the guy that plays his boss, right?
Yeah.
Is he one of Michael Myers' many victims?
I think he played one of the police officers.
Oh, who survives?
Yeah, or
Whoa.
I don't.
Whoa. Just wait. In only a few weeks, Anton, we're covering Halloween 4.
Oh man, can't we go back to Halloween 3?
Which you want to do it again?
I have an affection for that film now. It's just so silly.
It's the lowest rating we've ever given a film where we both said we'd watch it again.
Yeah, it's
bad. It's a bad movie.
But like, how many days till Halloween? I need to know.
The film will tell you. Yeah, it's Billy from Predator. Billy, you son of a bitch. No, that was Dylan. Sorry, not Billy.
That was Dylan.
He would never say that about Billy. What'd you think of the effects? Because this is an effects-heavy film. It was nominated for Best Visual Effects at the Academy Awards.
It looks like it was from the early 80s.
It had that kind of, some of it had although Ghostbusters wasn't out by that point, but it was almost like the precursor, that kind of animated
the tendrils.
The electricity arm things. Yeah, those looked a little old.
Yeah. There are some, I think, effective shots in the film.
Yeah, I've seen worse. I'll say that.
I've seen worse.
I've seen Cool World. I've seen worse.
The worst shot in the film, the worst effects in the film, I think, are the tornado. It's like, oof, that's rough.
But nothing too. I'm trying to think of like anything that was like jarring. Nothing too jarring effects wise.
Yep.
When they open the door and all the objects are floating around the room, it's pretty not
little
great.
hokey.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like it should be like it's part of the 3D release version. You know, it's kind of things are sort of coming towards your eyes. But I would say because of the age of the film, a lot of the effects were practical. So I think that's why, you know, the room, as the objects started to slide into the closet, Dana sort of being stuck to the ceiling and then slowly coming down the walls. And the only sort of computer visual effect I assume it was although I think it was actually a practical set, was the house collapsing. I thought that was really impressive at the end.
That is not any CGI at all. They cover that pretty extensively in the ILM documentary. It's on Disney Plus.
Oh.
It was all practical. They used a giant model and they had like this giant air cannon, and then at the same time on the other end they had a reverse air cannon that would suck the pieces of the model in while it was collapsing. I'm not doing a great job of explaining it, but it's really cool how they do it in the documentary, and they spent so much money on it. I think it was like $50,000 that they spent. That was in 1982 money, so they basically had one shot to do it. And it is pretty cool. You're right.
And then they actually did send it to a different pocket universe. So
the other side, if you will.
That was really expensive.
Paul, definitely check that documentary out. The history of Industrial Light and Magic. Really cool. Let's just say it's a product of its time with the effects. We haven't talked about the score yet, composed by Jerry Goldsmith. Very famous score. I'll say it's iconic. It's a score that is referenced and I think used in a lot. I've heard this score used in like commercials and stuff.
But is it your favorite?
It's not. It's not a traditional horror score. I mean, this is composed by the guy who gave us The Omen, which is one of, if not the most famous horror scores ever. I do think it's an effective score. It's a very good use of xylophones, which is a pretty easy instrument to get wrong because it could sound goofy. But when you're dealing with a guy like Goldsmith, he can make any instrument sound cool. It's a very famous soundtrack, and I think it works for the film. I can tell Anton doesn't like it, though. He just dismissively asked me, is it your favorite?
Yeah, not to. I mean, no, not to be dismissive. It's just I think this is where it's a personal taste thing.
Yeah.
Just not my favorite. Not my cup.
Do you think it worked for the film?
Yeah, it fit the atmosphere totally.
Anton, we get an iconic horror score from 1982 that wasn't nominated for an Oscar. Ennio Morricone on The Thing. Good heavens.
Heavy hitter. I think I'll wait till that episode to talk about how I feel about The Thing.
So John Williams won that year for E.T. I don't think anyone's going to say that was the wrong choice.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. It's hard to go up against that.
I want to point this out. Ennio Morricone not nominated for The Thing. I mean, The Thing didn't get any Oscar nominations, as we know. Vangelis' score for Blade Runner also unnominated.
It was a very stacked Academy Award for that category. Actually, no, I think it was a very stacked Academy Awards in general.
Yeah, so that's the year Gandhi won.
Yeah, well,
which
you know,
we're going to cover that as a worst Best Picture winner because I think most people would acknowledge E.T. should have won, but we don't need to get into that discussion because Poltergeist was not nominated for Best Picture, believe it or not.
Going back to the soundtrack, I think probably why maybe Anton you don't like it so much is again when you're talking about the tone of the film, Jerry Goldsmith had to sort of, straddle two sides, the very scary elements and then all the family dynamics as well, and some of the, the scenes of the neighborhood and everything else, which kind of fell into the kind of E.T. world. But then you've also got the very scary Poltergeist, everything else, the jump scares. I think he did a great job of actually straddling those two worlds, to be honest. And I don't think you can ever go wrong with the Jerry Goldsmith score anyway.
Paul, when we talked about how much we all hated Star Trek V, one of the highlights of that film is Jerry Goldsmith's contribution.
Yeah, and it just elevates films like this as well, I mean, I could hear elements of Alien, in fact, in some of it, that he brought over to this score as well at some of the sort of more scarier moments. So, yeah, he did a good job.
No, that's a really good call out, Paul. I think I overlooked the fact on the balance that needs to be front and center for a film like this. When I think of a traditional horror score, I think that's probably where my tastes lean a bit. But probably for this film, it is very well done.
It's a very famous score, which is why I wanted to talk about it. Because, like I said, I have heard tracks from this score used in commercials around Halloween and things like that. It's just, and whenever you see Goldsmith scores like ranked, this always gets brought up. Have either of you ever seen the 2015 remake of this?
No. Mm-mm.
I haven't either. It's a forgotten remake, right? I mean, probably for good reason.
Not one that I want to watch.
We will be covering the sequels, Anton, and this is I texted this to you both, and both of you were as shocked as I was. There's a Poltergeist TV series from the 90s that's not really related to this other than the name, but I've never seen it. I don't know anyone that's seen it.
It's about as forgotten as the RoboCop TV series.
Was that animated?
Nope, live action. There was an animated RoboCop TV series.
All right. So I'm not crazy. Okay,
yeah, there was a animated one, but there was also a live action one, which you can Google.
Have you seen
see
it?
The costumes. I have seen it. You can see all the costumes.
Is it as bad as the RoboCop sequels?
It's as bad as you think it sounds.
It sounds pretty bad. Here's what else sounds bad. In April 2019, it was announced that the Russo brothers would be directing a reboot of the Poltergeist franchise. Obviously, as of this recording, that thankfully hasn't happened. I don't really think this needs to be remade or rebooted.
I think this is very nicely placed in history where it is, as something to inspire future horror films. I don't want another take on this because I've seen so many homages and takes on this with today's horror films.
That's it for the notes. Anything else to bring up before we give our ratings?
Only one thing was just to say, would you say there's a direct line between Poltergeist and Stranger Things, the TV series? To me,
definitely.
I don't think that.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Yeah. It's basically that. It's that film spread over a TV series, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's this film mixed in with like the Goonies, mixed in with like Stand By Me,
E.T. a little bit with the bikes and everything. A little bit of Stephen King. Oh, you said Stand By Me. Yeah, Stephen King for sure.
Depending on the season of Stranger Things, too, it delves into other classic films.
Later this year, we'll be getting more Stranger Things.
The last season of Stranger Things.
I've heard that it's they're not sticking to like a set duration for each episode. They're all going to be at least over an hour or more. So it's going to be a long viewing.
Goodness.
I don't know what to think because obviously it had a wonderful first couple seasons. I really, really liked it. And then I just don't really know where they were going with it. And I don't know if they did either.
There's no film for the series that would really warrant us to cover it. But if
No.
patrons would want us to talk about it, I think you can't talk about Stranger Things without talking about films that inspired it.
This is certainly one of them.
Yeah, and this is certainly one of them.
Well then, Paul, as the guest, you always have the chance to give your rating first if you'd like.
Go on then, let's do it. So in conclusion, I would say that I really enjoyed rewatching this. The visualizations, the family setup, I thought was just so well done. And, we talked about the special effects. I thought they, on the whole, all stood up because there were a lot of practical effects involved in this. And there were still some genuinely scary moments, particularly like the thunder and, the chair scene when Diane opens the door and there's the loud booming voice and things like that. I thought it was really, really good. And the fact that, Spielberg's fingerprints were all over this, I think all really made it a really, really tight movie. And I think, Pat, you said it, the chemistry of the family, I think, really propelled this film forward. You really believe they were a family. They're really trying to look out for each other. So when their youngest goes missing, they're desperate to get it back. And you could really feel that. And I really like that. And it still holds again to this day. In terms of, I would say, why wasn't it better? I think we've talked about it. Tonally, it switches a little bit from the more kind of comical side and social commentary to the scary stuff. And sometimes that worked really well. And other times, I don't think it worked as good as it should have. Again, as a whole, I thought it was such a well put together film. There wasn't anything wasted that I could see. The soundtrack was great. I loved it. It's such an iconic film, and you can see how other films have taken those elements and moved the whole thing forward. So I really enjoyed it. There are elements that now, because it's a horror film, I've seen it a few times, it doesn't sort of scare me as much. But I'd give it a solid, I'm stuck between a B plus and an A minus, somewhere between there.
If you had to pick one.
Originally I said B plus, but yeah, I'll stick to B plus. B plus for me.
Okay. Anton, do you want to go first or after me since your baby's awake?
I can go.
Okay.
Actually, maybe you should go.
Okay. All right. If you haven't seen this film, I would recommend it. Absolutely. This is a deserved classic. I mentioned earlier how I don't love this film and I don't have a lot of affection for it. I don't want to give the impression that I don't think this is a good movie because I actually think this is a great movie. It really is a deserved classic. I'm very fond of it. There are things about this film that are dated that make it a product of its time. That doesn't mean a movie's good or bad. I actually think this has aged pretty nicely for the most part, just because of how iconic and influential it is. I was really blown away rewatching this of just how many films have referenced this over the years and have taken inspiration from it. Just from the visual setup, and this film is absolutely brilliant, and that the credit has to be given to Steven Spielberg for this, for the setup and payoff. Paul, you said something to me offline that Spielberg never wastes a moment. Nothing could be more true of this film. This is a really well-paced film, I thought, too. Everything that he sets up pays off later in the story, and it's very satisfying. I like the performances. I like the family dynamic. The reason why I think it could have been better, at least for me, and why I don't love it like some others do, is I think it struggled a little bit with staying in the lane of, did it want to be a real horror movie or did it want to be something else that was lighter toned? Now, on the one hand, I think it's a very good film to get your kids into horror movies. Like, I look forward to showing this to my daughter when she's older. If she ever asks me, like, Dad, can we watch a scary movie? This is the best place to start. And I think in some ways the film deserves a lot of credit for that, because there's plenty of room for those types of horror movies too. Not every horror movie needs to be an R-rated gore fest. Some of the performances are cheesy, but there's just too many iconic moments in this film for me to really say anything particularly negative about it. It's not in the A territory for me. And Paul, I really like where you were going with that. I almost want to say you stole my thunder, but that would be too much on the nose. So I'm going to go right with you at a B plus. I mean, it's a great film. It really is. Deserved classic.
Not my favorite, but I give it a B plus.
We're all in agreement. Anton, do you have like a cue card I can read for you as you tend to your daughter?
Maybe we can record a post.
Well,
I'll give you a 2-minute.
Anything you want to add to what we already said? Because I just monologued there for a while.
No. I think you guys both hit. Actually, she's not being as vocal right now. So I think that I have so much respect for this film. It's such a well executed film that has inspired horror films to this day. My tastes are different for films that are just not this particular film, but I have so much respect for it. And I know that you can't look at films today without seeing how much this has influenced those. So with everything that both of you have said, I actually really do find myself at a B plus.
Love it. B pluses across the board. That is it for Poltergeist and this week's edition of Why Wasn't It Better? Paul, it's always a pleasure to have you on. This was a fun one to talk about.
Yeah, guys, thank you very much for the opportunity. I love the atmosphere you've created there, Patrick. Really in keeping with the subject matter at hand, and I hope our listeners enjoyed it as well.
I was going to say, I hope the thunder that you may or may not be hearing in the background doesn't detract from your listening experience. Well, that is it for this week's edition of Why Wasn't It Better? Or is it, Anton? I believe we're releasing 2 episodes this very same week because we couldn't decide which 1982 horror film we wanted to do, this or The Thing, and we thought, why not do them both? And if Anton's baby wasn't crying at the top of her lungs, he would tell me how right I was by saying that. But for now, I will stop talking. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.